Let's begin. If you would like to continue the course on our website, you can click the link at the top of the screen and begin now. If you are ready to begin on YouTube, you are already exactly where you need to be. Please note there will be occasional links at the top of the screens to help direct you to important sites or additional video options. If you are continuing the course on our website, you won't see the links. But if you decide to do the course on YouTube, remember to watch each video through to the end, and a link to the next video in the course will be right there ready for you. If anything is missing, please note it in the comments below, and we will address it as soon as we can. It's time now to learn a little more about your brain and how it affects your consciousness. I wish you tremendous success on your journey. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the brain's relation to consciousness, the effect brain function has on us, where triggers really begin. We're going to learn what we can do to control it and do practices, live happier, healthier lives. So where I started, my original diagnosis was chronic acute panic disorder complicated by severe depression. That was later revised to a simplified severe PTSD and addiction. My original diagnosis was incurable. I was diagnosed in a chronic state. And the original diagnosis was, of course, there were multiple reasons I was diagnosed this way. The first one was my age. I was 23 at the time, and so I was told my brain had fully formed and that I wouldn't be able to completely heal it, that I would suffer the condition my entire life. Now, we know a lot more about neuroplasticity in the brain now, but there are still two other conditions within that diagnosis that are still diagnosed the same way today, and that was my DNA and my experience. So I come from an environment where I was raised with psychopathic people and people with severe hyperactive disorders, ADD, ADHD, extreme conditions. So I was told my brain had bad wiring, that you're just DNA, it's just luck of the draw, you can't do anything about it, this is just how your brain function is. And the second thing was experience. I was told that I would suffer my entire life, night terrors, panic attacks, things like that. My panic disorder was pretty acute. I was initially on MAOIs, and it really did help me. It helped me. It actually made my life better. That's how bad I was. So but I had a hard time accepting the diagnosis that I would suffer my entire life because of someone else's bad decisions in my mind. So I started looking around. So where I am now is I'm cured. I currently test as never having had any condition like that my brain is just healthy, high functioning. And so I want to talk about how I did that and what I did. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, where we're going to start is where triggers really begin. Now, this is really important. So when we're talking brain function, what I'm talking about is the result of, let me rephrase that our entire thoughts, feelings, emotion, our perception of ourselves, our perception of the world around us are all byproduct of chemical. And so those chemicals are triggered in the brain. So you have these neurons that hold information. Certain things happen and it triggers the release of a chemical. And this is how we have our result. This is what we're going to be talking about a lot tonight. So we want to talk about how triggers work. So the first thing that is involved in a trigger is sensory information. So this is sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, right? And the brain's base desire in all things is to be safe, to live better, to have more life. That's the drive of all of nature. And so we're being a fundamental part of nature. This is what our brain is doing. So the sensory information, what happens is it combines with memory. Now, memory is stored data from the past. This can be your past, so your life experience. It can be ancestral past. So this can include primal memory. Most people that are afraid of spiders, snakes, fear of the dark, all come from primal memories. If you take any primate that's never seen a snake before in its life and show it a snake, it will freak out, right? This is just encoded in our DNA, but it is encoded as memory.
So we have our personal life experience, we have our entire ancestry, and then including all the way back to primal memory, and then we have the current environment. So the brain is storing all this memory as data, right? It combines that memory with sensory information. So basically, if we're talking about a trigger, for example, that's going to trigger me into a fight or flight response. I'll talk more about that. My brain is going to store information that predicated that. So if somebody grabs me by the arm and then attacks me, my brain is going to store being grabbed by the arm because it's going to try and prevent the thing from happening, right? And then what it's going to do is it's going to, when that happens, it's going to release a chemical. So again, we have sensory information that connects with memory, whatever that memory is, good, bad, everything that happens to us, and then a chemical is released. Okay, this is what becomes our sensory triggers. So when we're talking sensory triggers, this is what we're talking about. This is what's driving the entire bus of our brain. So I want to talk about the fact that sensory trigger then releases that chemical. This creates our state of consciousness, which then affects our life experience. So ultimately, this is what I was talking about. Thoughts, feelings, emotion, everything you consider your reality is byproduct of a chemical production. So what we're going to do is break down those chemical productions, break down the effect they have on our life experience, and then talk about ways to be able to control the brain function that releases that chemical.
Now that we understand triggers, let's begin with our phase 1 practices.